a man loves a woman. See you next fall. I got to sing that
I
one.
love that line.
I got to sing that one.
Yeah?
Yeah. Have a bitch in summer. See you next fall. Did my
Tom
Bob
Petty.
my Bob Petty, my Tom Dillon. And oh look who we have tonight. And you know what, kids? We know who we're going to have next Thursday too. But tonight is the Brian Bassett Wild Cherry. Do you remember that show?
Well, yes.
It blew my mind to find out that Brian was that Wild Cherry was a progressive rock band. Okay, here we go. Where's the...
Okay. Well, hello, Roberto says Steve Longo, the Richard Gere of drums. What does that mean?
Yeah, what the... I'm not sure about that.
Is he the American Gigolo? Of
Really?
drums?
Or
Is he
am I an officer and a gentleman? Well, listen, whatever it is, I'll take it. Thank you very much. Pretty Woman. Yes, Pretty Woman.
But you're not playing drums on that.
No, I'm not.
No.
Man,
Well,
it's...
Paolo. Explain, Paolo.
Well, I guess, because I don't know.
Well, he'll explain.
He will.
Yes, he will.
And we have all night because I'll be right here hanging with you as we play Brian's episode. This is how weird the business is. And this is not the first time I heard this. Keith Crane told me something about 1910 Fruit Gum Company. Now, you know them, Simon Says, and 1, 2, 3 Red Light.
An Indian...
Indian Giver. But they were a psychedelic band, like a Jefferson Airplane, for lack of a better description. They were into the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And
all they had to do was put out one bubblegum song, and that was it.
And that's for the rest of time. Yeah, now iconic as it is, come on, those songs are like part of music history.
I love
But yeah, Keith told me that the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, all of a sudden that made sense. Because go back, or maybe you know someone that was alive in the 60s, when all that weird branding was happening, and Big Brother and the Holding Company, it was all,
I did read when I was
Really?
looking up, yes, when I was looking up their songs, that I think it was the singer found a gum wrapper in his attic, and it said 1910 Fruit Gum Company.
Oh, yeah, so well,
So that's
it's not like we don't know somebody to ask.
Keith.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
Gail heard Simon Says today on the radio.
Well, there you go. Simple Simon Says.
Simon Says.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Simple Simon Says.
Okay.
And Keith,
oh,
man,
wait.
let me-
Keith says Frank Jekyll. That's the singer, right, Keith? Yeah.
Oh, my brother's on the... Oh, hey, bro.
Hey, Keith.
Well,
All right. Thanks, Keith.
for those of you that
Oh,
got...
he's the guitar player. Thanks, Keith.
For
Whoa.
those of you that came late to the party, that is my partner in crime and the musical director of the Roy Orbison Experience, Keith Crane,
The Vernon
on
Compton
drums.
band. Yes.
On drums. On drums. Jeez.
Might need to turn that up.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
So anyway, amazing, the business. So many bands started out in one direction, and because a label got involved and saw some,
Yeah.
dollar signs,
Yeah.
their direction was changed. They were, molded, and
And then when they didn't need them anymore,
they were cast aside.
bye-bye.
But
See you
Who-
later.
who-
Have
yes.
a bitch in summer.
Yes.
See you next fall.
And but the nice thing is, it's the fans that really, at the end of the day, determine how long a band will last. Now, Brian Bassett, who's our throwback tonight, was in Wild Cherry, play that funky music, White Boy, but he's also playing with Foghat now, and that's a player, man. You go to the situation that you're tasked with, and That's pretty impressive. So anyway,
Okay, well, Paolo wrote back.
yes,
He
Paolo.
did not say why you were the Richard Gere of drums, but he did say,
I'll take it.
please, could you play a Bob Dylan song called Tempest? Love the program.
I can't, and the reason is I will get shut down.
That's
I that's the only reason that I can't play copywritten material is because
We just play things that Steve
we've had
has
the show
played it.
interrupted. So we do. I do stuff that I know. Most of the stuff all of the stuff that I play is mine in one way or the other.
Or he's playing drums on
But
it. He didn't
but
play
somebody
with Bob Dylan.
somebody manages to figure out a way to copyright infringe me for my own material. So
Right.
I have to be. Believe me, when I had Brian, the show you're about to see, on the show, which I think it was March 7th
No,
of
April
last year.
7th, 2021.
April 7th?
Yeah, January, February, March,
Right, April
7th.
7th. So a little over a year ago, and I foolishly played, and they were dancing and singing and moving with the groove and
Play that funky music, white boy.
and got flagged, and
And then they shut the show down in parts of the country.
so we can't do that.
So-
Or I would, I
But
would,
he's
Paolo,
the guitar player
I
on
would.
that song.
Yeah. Anyway,
We
let's
better
get on to it.
it.
Let's
Yes.
get to it because this is a good hour long, and it was a great chat, and I hope you enjoy it. We'll be right here watching with you. Questions? Just ask them. Here we
Okay.
go, kids.
Enjoy.
Oh.
No, you were just,
No, I'm
you
cruising.
said schoolgirl.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, come in.
Ah, Saved by the Bell.
Hey, man.
Hey, Steve, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Great.
Excellent. Excellent. I was just bragging on your touch.
Yeah. You're amazing.
In the jam. That's my wife and producer of all things but children.
That's right.
Laurie.
Hi, I'm Laurie.
Boy, thank you. I think that's the California Blues.
Yeah,
That's funny.
man.
That little jam started as like a 15-second intro to I Just Want to Make Love to You. And over the course of a year or two, it turned into a 20-minute extravaganza that we actually had to give a name to put it on the record.
So that was
It was great,
Claudia.
man. I mean, I really enjoyed it. But what are you using? Plexis back there?
Yeah, 900s actually. JCM 900.
900s
Uh-huh.
with a Telecaster and getting that sound.
Yeah, it's actually a Schecter, a PT, and it has a humbucker, one of their custom pickups. So it's a nice hybrid between a Gibson and a Tele sound.
It certainly is, man. And you
Yeah.
sling it well, my friend. That was great. Great.
Thanks a lot.
That was
So,
great.
yeah, man,
Has anybody compared you to Eric Clapton?
Well, thank you. I'll take any comparison of that nature anytime. But
Yeah.
Eric's one of the the greatest. So
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
the
No,
same
but
cool with me.
you have. I mean, it's well, you know what you do. You know what you do.
Those were my inspirations: Jeff Beck and Eric and Peter Green, and all the British Invasion blues guys that rocked it up. I mean, that's where all our licks.
Yeah, no, it's right. It's weird how it all came full circle back to here from there, and that and you and I are probably roughly the same age, and we remember black and white TV and no Beatles.
Right, when we were like, what are we now, like 39, 40?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those are the greatest days growing up, in our age group. I mean, we had such great music to listen to, and man, everything was brand new and exciting, and it was, man, just to pull out a new record. And I always used to love putting it on a turntable and poring over every word and picture on that album cover as it played through. I mean, those were exciting times.
Yeah, they really were, and they were mysterious. They were cloaked in some mystery because all you ever got, I mean, there was no MTV, there was no any of that. All you got, was if you were hip enough to find Hullabaloo on the weekend, maybe you could see something, or Dick Clark. But you just got some pictures, and maybe there was a fanzine. A lot of that's gone. All of that's gone. There's no mystery about anything anymore.
Yeah, it was like you're like a rock and roll detective. I mean, you found a new great group or a new great album, man. First thing you did was share it with your friends. And I taught college for a few semesters, and I used to tell my students back then all you had was, if you're lucky, a nice bicycle and a good stereo. I mean, that was it. And, you played board games. I mean, come on, so whenever you got a new great record, you just went to whoever had the best stereo house and put it on. I mean, it was a group experience, and you just rocked out new stuff.
And I remember when, oh God, I remember the first time I heard Jimi Hendrix Experience. It was an event. Come on over. We've got this new record. We all go downstairs to the Doug's house with the good stereo and listen. And it was like, man, it was great times, and they gave birth to great stuff. So, but let me do a hard left turn on you, man.
Sure.
Wild Cherry. That was, I mean, what? Now I know you came from Pennsylvania, and we have a lot of great people that migrated to the New York music scene from Pennsylvania. Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Pittsburgh was a really happening music scene at that time. I mean, so many bands. We were all cover bands at some point because you had to play 4 hours a night. But almost every band, and there was a dozen at least in that era, early 70s, that were playing original music as well. There was, I mean, I don't know if people would recognize it, but the Iron City House Rockers, they became national. And then if you go up into Cleveland, Paul Stanley and Billy Price and the Keystone Rhythm Band and Norman Nardini, the Silencers. I had a band there called Airborne. I mean, and everybody was writing original music, as well as covering what you had to cover to gig. So, I mean, it was and there were so many places to play. You could play 5 different places a week and every week. I mean, you made a living.
It was, so you're talking about 70s, early 70s.
Early 70s, right, in Pittsburgh, and really the tri-state area up into New York, Cleveland, West Virginia. That was our circuit, Pennsylvania.
And what was the drinking age in Pennsylvania back then? Was it 18?
Well, it was 21, but man, right over the border in West Virginia was near beer with, 18. So they had giant clubs down there, plus a bunch of colleges in that general area. So we would go down there and play for over 1,000 kids on the weekend.
That's great. And do you by any chance know Linda Mackley?
I do not. No. Was she from the Pittsburgh area? Or
yeah,
that area?
A great drummer. She's now, moved to New York or whatever. She's.
I know someone he does know that just said to tell him hello, and that would be Tommy Pop.
Oh, Tom.
Tom said to tell you hello.
We'll send my hello back. Yeah.
Well, he can hear you.
You just did. He can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I do it this way, so that it's. I've told this story a million times. When everybody else started their shows, I wanted to do something that was different and that would not only entertain people at home or let them see something they've never seen before, like me in space. Now they've seen that plenty. But I wanted to recreate the feeling that I got talking to a new musician or an old friend that I haven't seen for 20, 30 years that you bump into on the road. A roadie that used to crew for us who now is with whoever. And those conversations are priceless to me. And I loved running into people, at the hotel bar, the lobby of the And so this way, I can't see the comments either. Of course, when there's something that the producer needs to holler out, and we hear about it. But for me, it's really about, this whole thing and just hanging and doing so. So how did music start? Where did it start? Always guitar?
Well, always guitar in high school. I mean, I was pretty sports oriented all through. I played football, ran track, but really, like you said, when Hendrix and Zepp 1 came out, and I used to take a bus downtown Pittsburgh from where the suburbs where I lived and stare at this Gibson Gold Top, and the window of Lawmakins Music downtown Pittsburgh. I mean, I took a bus or hitchhiked. I mean, that was my major transportation back then, was thumbing into town just to stare at that guitar. So when I finally saved up some bucks and my dad pitched in 50%, I bought that Gold Top, and my life took a left turn right about then with all the great music that was coming out and some mutual friends that, we were a basement garage band, and that's where it started. And ended my football career.
Now, just a side note, kids, you've heard me tell the story about us taking the bus down to Getty Square in Yonkers so that we could stand outside of a music store and look at a Rickenbacker 12-string.
When you were a kid.
Yeah, no, last week.
Oh,
No, I mean how, that's what we do. You just are. You have to see that stuff. And back in the '60s, it was rare. You know, it wasn't something that you saw on television or anyplace else. It was like, ooh. So anyway, here we go. Sorry.
Started my rock and roll journey.
wow.
And yeah, and that was it. I mean, along with all the Ed Sullivan shows and all the exciting things that were happening in music, man. I mean, it just got, took me over to like, God, so many people my age.
It's funny that you told the story about the gold top because I was in a band. Well, in our band, the second guitar player had a gold top, and it was then, so it was for real. But funnier than that, we were,
The bus.
12 years old,
Yeah.
whatever, and Birds fans. So we wanted to see a Rickenbacker. And they had a Fireglow Rickenbacker at Bill's Music in Getty Square in Yonkers. I'm having a deja vu. Go and see. And I remember just looking at this thing and seeing all the machines on the side of it. And it was, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, I always loved that Wayne's World scene because, oh yeah, you will be mine. I mean, that's true. That's exactly what I felt,
Well, yeah, but we did it first.
And neither one of you were a guitar player. It was a bass player and a drummer.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. No, and I've always wanted a Rick, and when I finally could afford one, they don't play. My hands are too big, and it's just. But that's okay. I got down there to see the thing.
I think he's got big hands.
So you started the band. Well, guitar wasn't a very popular instrument in school, or was it?
Well, it was. I started actually, as I remember, I started, learning licks, and after school, I went to an all boys high school, sort of a prep school, Central Catholic. And but after school, our buddies used to hang out in the library and listen to records, and I'd bring my little amplifier in there and my new gold top, and we'd sit there and jam, and that became like almost like
because I can, Chris.
Curricular activity after school. And then a couple buddies of mine, one played drums. We had found a bass player, and so we started learning the songs of the day, at least trying to. I mean, my drummer Todd Tregenow, in whose basement we jammed in for a couple years. I should send his mother flowers every year because we used to play like whipping posts for like 3 hours. And and they're upstairs trying to watch television while we're downstairs, cranking it up. But that's how we learned. And we, I was in 2 or 3 just like local bands. You'd play the coffee houses or teen clubs and stuff. I mean, we were not drinking age. I mean, even though in Pittsburgh, once you hit about 18, you could play all the clubs. The bar owners didn't really care. And really, once you got good enough to actually get hired for something, I mean, there was a lot of places to play, so that we got pretty good pretty fast, and we were playing and rehearsing pretty much 7 days a week up there.
And that's what does it. That's what that's for me coming up in the late '60s, early '70s. Of course, we learned the songs of the day. As well, we learned everything from the Rascals. We did soul music. We did everything. Anything that we could think of to play, we played. We weren't really genre specific. It wasn't like a metal band. And we started jamming, is how the original thing happened for us. We would just let a tape run, a cassette recorder or a reel-to-reel, 3340, and just let it run, and everybody would, get stoned and put in a colored light and then play, and it was and that's how the original thing happened for me. And I got very much in line with wanting to create my own material, and I was about that. But I loved the covers that we played. I mean, we played exotic stuff, from everything from Birds of Fire to Hall & Oates. I mean, it was insane, and we had the players in the band to do it. But it gave birth to whatever it is I do now. It came from knowing all that stuff.
Right, and improvisation back then on jam. We just called it jamming. I mean, you pick a song and then, like you said, play it for an hour. I mean, because we were into Quicksilver Messenger Service, the live album, and was, Who Do You Love, play that for 20, 30 minutes. And, and then early Johnny Winter. And the next, and, we would just pick a groove, early Savoy Brown, who Buddy Roger was a, key member of that. But I mean, they were early guitar groove songs where you could like play a riff and then you could jam on it for like 20 minutes, and give everybody 10-minute solo. And, it was just the way you learned how to play.
Exactly. And we were together, my earliest band was together for so many years that we had that telepathy. We were talking 25 years. When you're in the middle of a jam, when somebody's gonna, I don't know, the instrumental guys would tell each other when we were going to switch keys with a look or a nod, and all of a sudden we'd be playing an F, or and it was great. It was because you knew where it was going to go. I would change the time signature, and everybody would just
follow along. Yeah, that's the beauty of playing. I mean, that's what keeps you into it all these years.
Exactly right, and it's never the same twice. For it's it's supposed to be. Some parts of it are supposed.
Well, Roger calls them guardrails, so we have certain, guardrails, you can go, but you can bounce around inside there, and, but yeah, that's how we started, and a bunch of friends. And, I played in a couple different bands with a couple sets of musicians, eventually ending up in Wild Cherry, and we were sort of a A-list regional club band. By that point, I had been in 4 or 5 bands, I've been playing, 5 or 6 years, and we were a rock band. And the song is very autobiographical, exactly what happened. We were playing Zeppelin, Foghat, ZZ Top, all rock stuff, Robin Trower. And someone actually came up to us, the clubs were changing. There was a club called the 2001 Disco in Pittsburgh, held held a couple thousand people. And someone actually, 2001 being a futuristic name then, in 1976. But it was, lighted dance floor, and someone actually came up to our drummer and said, "You better start playing some funky music, white boy," because we'd start, everybody's dancing. Of course, Casey's, coming out, and the Bee Gees, and, even, Bowie, and, Lennon with Fame, and all those, songs were coming out, Earth, Wind and Fire, Commodores, all those songs were the hits then. And so we really made a concerted effort to go in that direction, and wrote some songs with that feel, basically inspired by the Commodores, and Play That Funky Music was one of them.
But that's amazing to me. I mean, because I was going to ask. I know about Molly Hatchet, and I know currently about Foghat, obviously, and that seems. I'm not. If I was familiar with Wild Cherry's whole catalog and where you guys came from before that song, I might understand it, but I've got like the 10,000-foot view, and here I'm thinking, I can't wait to see what this is, and it wasn't anything like what I thought it was. Amazing.
And we were just, we were an adept, top 40 cover band, and so when, we could like learn any song, sometimes 3-4 songs in a rehearsal, like, okay, what's up? How Long, is the hit this week. So we learned that one, or, Shining Star. Okay, well, let's give that one a shot, So whatever was on the charts, we were playing. And so to make the switch in style wasn't that big of a deal for us.
Yeah, you had that stuff in your pocket. That's awesome. That's what it, and that song, I mean, how did, what happened when that happened? I mean, all of a sudden you've got not just a hit song, but a hit song at a tipping point in a controversial time, awesomely placed. What was that like?
Well, it happened so fast, and really our intention, we paid for that record and most of our first album ourselves. We recorded it up in Cleveland Recording, which was a pretty famous studio. And we really wanted to get a single in the jukeboxes at the time, And but while we were recording that, Play That Funky Music, a record producer, Carl Midori, who was looking for, new acts, they had just started Sweet City Records in Cleveland, backed up by the Belkin brothers, who were big concert promoters.
Oh, yeah, I remember the Belkin brothers.
Right, and huge concert promoters. They started a label, were looking for acts to sign, and they came into our studio, and within a short time, Rob Parisi, the band leader and the writer of the song, had us signed, and we were on Epic, and that was in the day of radio boiler rooms. You had to get placed on stations, and so we had, Little Sweet City Records had some really dedicated promo guys that were calling day and night radio stations trying to get us placed. I think we broke in Atlanta on one of their big 6-point stations, and then it went through really all the R&B stations started picking it up, and for there was no picture of us on the cover, so for
Exactly.
a long time, a lot of people thought we were a black band.
I thought you were. I thought it. I figured. I thought it was like maybe it was maybe there was a couple white guys in the band,
Right.
but it's definitely. I mean, it's got that feel, and you guys produced it yourself.
Yeah, we did. We recorded it ourselves on our own dime, and and so it came. As a single. We actually had it as B-side. We actually did a cover of "I Feel Sanctified" by the Commodores. Was our intended A side, a remake of that, but DJs flipped it over, and really within a year it went right up the charts. It's crazy.
Man.
Yeah. And if that guy hadn't said to you, you better learn to play some funky music.
So all right, so it's 75 or so, right? 76, and you're out. You're touring. You're doing tour support. What's that like? I mean, are you playing full shows with a full set, or is it feature here, feature there?
No, we were usually a lot of, and because of our connection with the Belkin brothers, we were opening up for the Isley Brothers, Commodores, Earth, Wind & Average White Band. And we were doing full, like 40-minute sets, I guess, 40, 45s. Because it was usually just a 2-bill act, maybe one before us with a 30-minute set. I'll tell you a funny story, though. One of our first shows was actually with Santana in Cincinnati. And we were still, going around in a van. Our stuff was in cardboard boxes. We didn't have road cases or anything. So we get up, we set up, Santana visitors or their sound check. We set up our back line, and we plug in the guitars, and we can't reach the microphone line because our cords are only 20 feet long, and the microphones are 30 feet in front of us. So we had to make an emergency run to the music store and get extensions. This was before wireless guitars.
That's funny.
So right after that, we had a band meeting and hired a production company to get us up to arena stage, because we really went right from the clubs right into arenas. I mean, it was funny. So we weren't exactly prepared for those first couple shows.
What a mind-blowing meteor shot that must have been. Wow.
Right. And then plus, I'm used to my bass player, I could hit him on the head, on a stage in a club. Now he's like, half a football field on the other side of the stage. So all those things getting adapted to that stage, size was really a big deal for us in the first couple of weeks.
That's great, man. And so
what a problem to have.
Yeah, it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, sure.
What was the reception like opening for the Commodores, man? I mean, did people get it? And what was the rest of the set like?
Well, the rest of the set, I mean, we had an album out by then, and so we just basically did our whole album, and it was all, funk music, and we did a couple covers. But basically all in that same funk style as like the Commodores. I mean, we were well matched with them, and also with the Average White Band. We toured a lot with them, and they were so fantastic. I mean, I can't even tell you how great they were live. But we blended well. But the funniest thing was, I remember we played with the bass player from Sly Stone. What was his band?
Oh, come on.
I know I can't think of it, but you know what I mean. Slap Bass King. Larry Graham, Graham Central Station.
Graham Central Station. Larry Graham.
So we're playing in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol Center there, and they have video screens in the center of the arena, from the hockey games or whatever. And so we get up on stage, and the cameras hit us, and we're all white guys. So then you hear like 15,000 people go like, "Ooh!" So
wow.
But then our singer would just go 1, 2, count off the song, and half the audience, had a cowbell. The other half usually had a, tambourine or something, and the whole thing would just start shaking. And, and it was party music back then, dance music, feel good music, and everybody jammed. we never had any kind of really problems. We just had a ball.
That's awesome, man.
And
That's,
all the
that's
fans treated us great, you know. The Earth, Wind and guys were wonderful. The Ozzy brothers were real sweethearts,
And was Lionel Richie in the Commodores at the time?
he was the sax player back then, as a matter of fact.
wow. And was Steve Ferroni in the Average White Band?
He was, yeah. And we became pretty good friends during that time.
Yeah, nice guy.
Yeah, he's a great.
Yeah,
I love Steve. You know, well, we have history there too. He's a good friend, and you know, it's amazing the circle. You know, and that's one of the points of the show is, you know, how it's like going to a wedding and seeing a cousin you've never met before, but it's that family thing. You know, it's amazing what we do. But let me ask you this, because this is going to get us off on a. We waited to talk about this until you were going to be on the show. Did you ever play with P-Funk?
Yeah, actually, we did New Year's. We played with New Year's Eve in Atlanta at the Peachtree. And it's really crazy story because, I mean, the whole gang was there. There was P-Funk headline, of course, and that's when they had the spaceship and the Apple had
The mothership.
the mothership. And then Bootsy Collins opened, and then the girls opened before them. So he had the whole thing. There was a sad thing happened that night. Bootsy's star base got stolen that night. And this is New Year's Eve in Atlanta, if you can imagine. And so, yeah, we opened up for all that. And, but it was, there was a big giant harem tent backstage. They didn't use the dressing rooms in the arena. They just had this giant tent. And you know, there's hookahs back there, and you go in and there's, you know, pillows everywhere. It's like, you know, like you're in the middle of the desert. It's crazy.
We just
But,
watched
you know,
a documentary on them.
I mean, you know, George Clinton, you know, what can you say? And then when they had, you know, and by the time he hit the stage, there's like 25 people on stage, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he knows how. We heard who was it that came out of in front of him? We saw a documentary. Watched a documentary on Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah, just
And-
the other night.
And man, who was it that came out of the spaceship before him? Oh,
it's
Sly
Sly
Stone.
Stone.
Listen,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he invited Sly to
He
do
invited
a
Sly-
show with him.
invited Sly to do a show with him, and then so Sly opened the show and did the whole thing, and then he said, you know, come on, Sly, you're
Get in
gonna
the
come out of the spaceship with me, right? And Sly comes out of the spaceship, and George Clinton comes out behind him naked.
And Sly never played with him again.
If you can see that documentary, man, it's like wow.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
I never met Sly, but our record company for our second record, we were recording up in New York and at CBS Studios, and you know we had
CBS Studios in New York.
yeah Studio B right there.
Which studio do you remember?
I think it was Studio B, and it was the building that had the big giant echo chamber, like on the first
Second floor. Oh
Second
man,
floor.
that's. I got a story about that building, but go ahead, please.
So, you know, we're doing our regular sessions, you know, you have, you know, hoagies or pizza or something. Well, the record company had set up a session with Sly. We were going to do a song together. We were going to do one of his songs, us being the backing band and him. So we get into the studio for that day's session, and there's champagne and shrimp, and, you know, there's this full on wedding layout here, but he never showed. So we never did the session. So it was sad. It was a missed opportunity. I couldn't only imagine what would have happened, you know, doing a track with him, but we never got the opportunity, but we were all ready for it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I wanted. I met Sly once, but I didn't know it was Sly. I was in that studio in Studio A, and if you
16
remember,
years old.
if you remember CBM, I was a teenager. It was like one of my first, in the first year of sessions that I started doing, and we were in Studio A. The Rascals had just left, right, and I was a huge Rascals fan. And come to find out years later, I'm friends with Gene. All these years later, Gene Cornish told me that was the day that the Rascals broke up. Okay, so there's some good karma for you. So we were trading studio time. You know, with a producer was going to give us some studio time if we played for his artist, which we did. And so I do the drum tracks, and somebody said, "Man, Edgar Winter's up in Studio E," which is, just whatever floor that is. And I go up there, and long story short, he pulls out what turned out to be angel dust. And
In a joint.
in a joint. I'm a kid. I have no idea. I'm like looking like, wow.
He thinks he's smoking a joint.
I think I'm smoking a joint. And I spend a half hour waiting for the elevator to move. Anyway, because it was a mess. When the elevator gets back down to Studio A and it opens up, there's Sly. Only I'm so whacked out, I think it's Jimi Hendrix. Because he's all in purple and white, velvet and suede and fur
Leather
and
boa.
and I'm thinking, this is Hendrix, but he not only is Hendrix glad to see me, he thinks he knows me. He puts his arm around me and starts asking me about Rosie and this and that and the other thing.
Hendrix is dead.
And Hendrix is dead, right? So I'm thinking, wait a minute, is this like a Paul is dead thing? Did I just ruin somebody's secret that Hendrix isn't really dead? Now they're going to take me out back and kill me? So anyway, but it turned out to be Sly, and it was.
And he got to hear him
it was
sing Family
amazing.
Affair.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
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 Who else can appreciate these kind of stories but people like us?
Well, yeah, but I mean, think about it. And again, another reason for the show. I have a very good friend that watches the show. I call him my remote producer because whenever anything's going wrong, he's like, yeah, well, I think now he's in New York.
Well, he's on right now because he's going, oh, yeah.
Okay, well, there he is. When I would get to certain parts of the country, I would obviously, if I could bring friends along or whatever it was, and they'd hear this chatter. For me, I miss it. I don't really want to talk about Drew Barrymore or COVID anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to talk about amplifiers and drumsticks and so it's
that's right up my alley. That's what and that's what's great about running into guys that I've admired all my life. Rick, run into Rick Nielsen. We play with Cheap Trick a bunch. Or Buck from Blue Oyster Cult, and that's all we do is talk shop. It's great.
Yeah, Buck's a good friend. Buck's been on the show. I haven't had Rick on yet, but I've played with Rick in I was in a band with Xander. We were like, we had a band to actually go back to do what we used to do when we were kids and play all cover material.
Yeah.
Xander wanted to sing Led Zeppelin or Beatles stuff. I mean, I Want You to Want Me. I get that all day long, but I know this, and what a singer, man.
After 20
oh my God.
years, he didn't want to keep
Yeah,
his voice is as strong as it ever was. I love. Plus, what a great band altogether. But
Yeah.
Robin
great.
Dick
Yep.
just like crazy good.
Yeah, and very much fortunate to have some of the kids. I mean, Bunny's not in there anymore, but Rick's son Dax plays drums, and I mean, you can't get much closer to the DNA than that. So, and it works, man. And
It certainly does.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and it was fun playing with Xander. I mean, I've known him a while, and to go out under those circumstances and do whatever came to our mind. Do you guys know this at sound check? Yeah, sure. Okay, let's do it tonight. Great.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He went from Wild Cherry to Molly Hatchet.
Yeah. So now, wait. I want to talk about when did you see the edge of the cliff with Wild Cherry? When did you see the end of the road coming with that? Because
I guess it was around 1979, the third album. I finished the third album with them, which we recorded again up in Cleveland, a couple sessions in Pittsburgh. And we were, the band was sort of leaning at, because Bob was sort of the band leader, and he was taking us more into almost like a soft R&B direction. And, like we had a couple ballads on there that were sort of like Lou Rawls-ish, and it became really not that quite interesting for me as a guitar player. So I was having, I wanted to get back more into a rock. I was thinking that we should have went more like Robert Palmer,
Yeah.
More like rock sounds and funk beats. That's where my head was at. We were going a little easier than that, and so it was just, and then there was a little tension. We had been touring pretty much nonstop for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I left, and funny enough, our keyboard player, Mark Avasek, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the band, Donnie Iris and the Cruisers, pretty famous.
Certainly, I'm not terribly familiar. Yeah, I know it is.
Right, it had some MTV hits, but really big in our region. Well, our keyboard player that eventually started that band was our touring keyboard player in Wild Cherry. And so he had some of those songs, "Love Is Like a Rock" and all some of these more rock-oriented songs. But the band wasn't really picking up on them. So I left the band and went back to Pittsburgh and started a rock band again, sort of more like modeled like Night Ranger, Styx. That was becoming pretty big then. And once again went back into playing 4 sets a night, doing about 2 sets of covers. We were starting to play Kansas. We had 2 fabulous singers, so we could cover Kansas, Styx, all that kind of stuff. And then we were writing our own music in that style. And never got that lasted a couple of years, really. Never got a record deal though. We were managed by Charlie Brusco, who actually manages Styx now. He had High Tides Management and based out of Atlanta, and they were managing the Outlaws at the time. And we were 3 guitars, so they had an interest in our band, but nothing really came of it. We were really busy and played quite a lot all through the tri-state area. And so that pretty much ended. I played in a couple more cover, bands in Pittsburgh. I played with the Silencers, which were an RCA recording artist. But really, that was it. I gave up on Pittsburgh right around the mid '80s and relocated to Florida. And that's when I started working with King Snake Records for like 15 years as a studio producer, engineer, guitarist.
Yeah, that's I meant to ask you about that because I saw the whole studio thing, and I have is the studio in your house, or is it a separate
Well,
place?
King Snake Studio was actually a studio on a property in Sanford, Florida. It was owned by Bob Greenlee. In fact, there's a documentary being made about that right now. It was very much like a Muscle Shoals kind of deal. It was old school Florida. All analog tape, inspired by Excello. Southeastern swamp blues was sort of our thing. A lot of our early artists like Lucky Peterson and Kenny Neal, who became quite big blues stars, were some of our early artists. I think we did over close to 200 albums out of there in my time. We were doing.
Where in Florida was it?
Sanford,
like Central
Sanford,
Florida.
right? Okay.
Yeah, just to the right of Orlando. And it was it was an old, 1800s mansion that had a side building that was converted into the studio.
Cool.
And so I worked there for, as first engineer, mostly for, most of its existence all the way up until I met Lonesome Dave, in the 90s. So, but I spent most of the 80s and a good part of the 90s as an engineer, producer. And then I had a quartet blues band, played around Central Florida.
That's listen, I tell you, if you have the chops for that, that's a great thing to transition into. I mean, especially after you've been, in that Wild Cherry situation, that's a lot of exposure fast, and it messes with your head. Did anybody burn out from that, or is everybody good?
No, everybody's good. I mean, actually, we did a reunion for a charity about 2 or 3 years ago now, I think. We picked, we hadn't seen each other probably like 40 years. We got together, rehearsed twice, and played our show from the arenas back then, like flawlessly.
Wow.
4 original members, and unfortunately, my good friend Ronnie, was the drummer, passed away just a few years ago.
Wow.
And we had that last time we recorded it, made a DVD. It was all for charity. But we sounded terrific. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, So no, nobody burned out. I mean, I did stylistically, I wanted to change my playing style, but everybody survived the road, fine. And, everyone's sort of a retirement age now. I'm not the last one still really playing. Our bass player, Alan, is quite a prolific songwriter. He does really interesting genre, electronica and roots kind of music. So he's still in the business. So, but yeah, we're all still friends. We call each other Cherry Brothers and keep in touch now.
Cherry Brothers.
more than we did, for the last 30 years. We're more in touch now than we probably ever have been.
Yeah.
So it all ended well. It all ended well, and it was just, for me, it was a musical decision more than anything.
And from what I'm hearing, a pretty good musical decision. So then it was. So then, where did you go? How did you get involved with the Southern Rock thing?
Well, that came actually, funny enough. Lonesome Dave came first. I had a quartet called Blue House, and we played in Orlando. Just blues music. We played actually really, like I said, Excello, Lazy Lester, Lightning Slim, Lonesome Sundown, all this like really kind of Southeastern oriented obscure blues.
Yeah.
That was what we specialized in, and we were playing at a club one night, and I'm friends with Pat Travers, the great guitar player, Pat.
Yep.
Lonesome Dave had just relocated from England. He had been on a hiatus from Foghat for a few years and moved to Orlando. And Pat Travers brought him to see us. He was friends with our bass player, Steve. And I think, Dave was looking to put a band together. I think they came really to look at Steve. But me and Dave, he was like a blues historian, Lonesome Dave. I mean, collector, knew everything about every blues record ever made in America. He knew every song that we played, as obscure as they were. He knew all the artists,
Wow.
knew the songs. So he sat in with us for like the whole night. And me and him just became best friends. And over the course of the next year, we decided to do like a review where my band opened and Blue House, and did a set. And then Pat Travers would come out and play a set with us. And then Lonesome Dave would come out and play a set with us. And then we sort of had all around Florida for a year or two. And then when Dave decided to go on the road again nationally with his own, his Lonesome Dave's Foghat, it was basically his solo band. He asked me to join it. So I played with him for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of that time, that was like 89 to like 92. And in 92, all the original members of Foghat reformed under at the request really of Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin was a big Foghat fan and wanted the original band back together.
Yeah.
So taking place, and we had just finished a European tour with Molly Hatchet, and I became pretty good friends with them in Germany and me and Bobby in particular, because his Les Paul got broken on the way to Europe. So he used my guitar for the whole tour. I'd play my set, give him my guitar, he'd play, and I became really good friends with Danny Joe Brown, and with Americans in Germany. We just hang out at the pub and drink beer and have fun in between shows. And so when they were aware of my situation, and when we got back to the States, one of the last festivals we played was with Hatchet, and Danny's road manager came over and said, Danny'd like to speak with you on his bus. And so I got on there, and Danny Joe said, Brian, would you like to play guitar in our band? We hear you're out of a gig now. I said, yes, sir, I would. He said, so about a week later, literally, I got off Dave's bus, and then Molly Hatchet picked me up on their bus. And our first show they picked me up in Florida. Our first show is in Northern Maine. And so I learned the whole set on the bus with headphones going to Maine. And I get to Maine, and I get off, and here, my very first show with Molly Hatchet is the very first show of the reformed Foghat. So,
Weird.
so I walk into the arena, and I, out of habit, go into the Foghat dressing room, right? and Roger's on playing as he does before every show. He's practicing on his practice pads, and he looks up at me and goes, wrong dressing room, mate. I go, oh
man.
Oh yeah. So then I went over, and so I played my first Hatchet show, opening up for Lonesome Dave and a new, really reformed Foghat.
Wow,
Wow.
So that's a crazy story. And I stayed in Hatchet from 92 to about 99, 7 years.
Wow.
And we did three albums in Germany. And then, the Dave went through a period of illness, and then Rod Price retired. And then Dave was in remission for a while. He asked me to rejoin the band. And so I came back to Foghat. And I played a bit in 99. For a while, I was in both bands, but then in 2000, I rejoined Foghat, and I've been there for the last 20 years now.
And what's the lineup now in Foghat?
Now it's a Roger Earl, from the original. Charlie Hune, who joined about the same time I did, really. So we've been together 20 years as members of Foghat. Craig McGregor was with us Tony Stevens played with us for a couple of years, and then Craig McGregor played with us for a long time until his passing, just a few years back. And so now we have Rodney O'Quinn, who was actually Pat Travers' bass player, so another Pat Travers connection there. But him and Craig were very good friends, and so Craig recommended him, and we called Pat, and Pat was kind enough to let us have Rodney. So we've been playing this way now for several years. But me, Roger, and Charlie we're on 20 plus years now.
Wow.
Well, now this is this is a weird place to go. Did Rod Price have a band called Nighthawk or Nightwing or
Night
Night what?
Night Watch, I believe.
Night Watch.
Night Watch. I auditioned for that band as a vocalist.
Okay, well then you might know Linda Arcello was his manager, who is now Roger's wife and our manager.
Maybe I don't even know how that happened. I have no idea how that happened.
Huh.
But yeah.
Not to interrupt you, but is there enough light on me now? It's getting dark where I am. Should I turn on some lighting?
Well, you're good. I'm about to actually ask you the questions and release you back into the wild.
Oh, okay. Well,
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I look better in the moonlight anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, Rod, I actually played with Rod for a year, and in Foghat, we did an anniversary tour. I believe must have been the 40th anniversary, maybe the 30th anniversary. We went to Europe, and Rod didn't really like the tour. He wasn't much of a road guy, and that's why he left the band, I think, initially. But he loved touring Europe, so we played as a 5-piece. That sort of made me like the fifth wheel on a Cadillac. But
Right. Yeah.
but I got to be friends with him. We roomed, the way odd man out. Sometimes we'd room together, and so we got to be good friends, and I got to watch him play slide up close and personal. So it's sort of like a year master class with a slide master. So.
That's awesome. That's well. Listen, you've had a storied career, and I tell you what, I enjoyed that jam and your touch on that telling. The reason I asked you about the studio is I have a studio here, and are you still active in recording and doing that whole thing?
Yeah, in fact, Sanford, King Steak Studios, they basically closed when Bob Greenlee passed away some years ago. But I do all the recording for Foghat now, and we're about 6 albums and a couple DVDs, and so I do a lot of mixing for a lot of other artists too. I have a Pro Tools system in my house. I don't really have the ability to live record, although we have a band house out in Central Florida on a 10-acre ranch we call Boogie Motel South, and we have a new live album coming out this year that we recorded up at Daryl's house up in New York. Not at the house that's on TV, but at his nightclub, which has a rather substantial recording set up in there. And so I get all the tracks home and mix it. And so I've mixed, a couple of our studio albums and 2 or 3 of our live albums. So keeping my hand in with the engineering.
Because I have a Pro Tools rig here too. So, and we do this thing. In fact, I was just finishing up. I don't know if you know Danny Miranda, who plays.
Yeah, I know Danny real well. In fact, he played with us some.
Really?
When Craig was there, he'd come out. He's done several gigs with us.
Well, Danny, I do this thing where I send drum tracks around, and guys just put their tracks on top of them and send them back. And today I have one that I sent to George Cintron and Danny, and got it back. And I don't like the way I played to it, so I'm playing another track on top of it. But it's just fun, man. If you want to get in the circle, it's pretty. I'll send you something.
Yeah, man. That's the way things are done now. I work with some guys out in California that same way. You just pass the tracks around, and I mean, when I think back to the 70s or like the 80s when I used to engineer at King Steak, spending all that time on my back aligning tape tracks and running test tones, to think what you can do with a laptop and a Pro Tools setup.
Oh, man. I mean, it's just amazing. And I've been a fan of that whole evolution, since it started. And but it's another conversation for another time. Yeah, you are starting to go away now. So if you want to throw a little
let me get just a second here.
That's it.
Yeah.
You are starting to go away now.
That's right, and that's about perfect timing.
Wow.
How
Yes,
about
it is.
Brian Bassett?
Man,
Talented.
you never know. And I was listening to the thing about Sly and me tell that story for the 800th time. I'm going to have to keep a journal. And it's just it's so strange how you glance off of different opportunities. I remember Led Zeppelin's lawyer, Steve Weissman? No, wait.
Weiss.
Steve Weiss?
Mm-hmm.
Had us playing, Rat Race, playing for his daughter's birthday. And I was singing the Led Zeppelin stuff, and according to our manager, Steve Weiss was in his office holding the phone, had Robert Plant on the phone or whatever, that as the story goes. I'd have to ask somebody that has better memory of it than me, but and you think, well, wow, what's he got, Robert Plant does not want to hear somebody else singing his stuff no matter what. But it's weird how it goes. And then, of course, I don't know how many of you know that.
To hear drums.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you know that Mark Hitt did a lot of recording with John Bonham on a Maggie Bell project. So it's, you like I said, you glance off a lot of people. I saw you guys talking about Jason before, and I've known Jason a long time. I'm sure I've told the Jason story too many times, so I'm not going to tell that one again. Unless you really want to know.
No.
No.
No, the children are starting to peel off. They're all saying goodnight.
Oh.
Nice show. Great show. Nighty night.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Everyone enjoy your evening.
And who did we say we were going to have for next Thursday?
Ivan Bodley.
No. The Bouchard brothers.
Oh, right. That's right. The Bouchard brothers, because they're on tour right now.
Right. So we're going to replay that show.
And they're
Those
assigned
guys,
to Deco
yes,
Entertainment.
we are label mates.
And Steve Gaspar and CrispinCio, who have both been on the show, their new album just dropped.
Fields of Grace.
Yep.
It's happening. Music. How about that? I hear music. And, keep looking for those Oxzoomed updates. We're working on the calendar for Vernon Kelton with the Roy Orbison experience. I'm going to start working on my album, and I'm going to start working on Volume 2, Oxzoomed Volume 2.
Tim wants to know, September 9th, what is going to happen? Well, that's our anniversary.
Well, that's our 38th anniversary. So outside of whatever presents you decide to, no.
I think he means
he does.
the John thing.
Yeah, no, when they roll out a record like this, because Deco works with Warner, so they have a whole process. There's a street date, and it's a whole. I haven't seen this since like the 80s. Where, are we going to put it out on the Tuesday? Are we going to put it out? It's like such an amazing rhythm of how they release records and when they do. And it hasn't been that way for a long time because people just drop whatever they drop on, But this is like a regular rollout. So I don't know what, I know.
We know. We can't say until September 9th.
Yeah. You'll see on September 9th. The thing is, if you join that mailing list, you should what? Oh yeah, she's doing the boogaloo.
Talk to the head.
If you join that mailing list at Deco or wherever I'll have to put a link to it in the Oxzoomed group, and I'll put it on the page. Then you'll know. You'll know everything. And to be honest, I'd love you to share it with as many John fans as you can possibly think of, because I think, you know, they've been waiting 20 years maybe to hear something new, and it's not brand new, but and volume 2 is going to be a lot of fun too. It's going to be different, and there you go. So
Okay.
that's our Throwback Thursday, and
So tomorrow night, Free for All Friday.
wait. So guess who you get to see?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
And you might get to see Lenny. Maybe.
Lenny, I got to get him some music. I have to get Lenny some music. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Lenny needs his own music?
Yeah.
All right, good enough. Well,
Okay.
kids, that's going to do it. And as always, if I don't see you in the future, I'll see you in the pasture.
Good night, everybody.
Take care, kiddos. Oh, look at that dog swimming through space. Oh, and people screaming.